Here we go.
Can I persuade you to join us for a drink? It's a tradition. Here, here.
Jar Jar, homie, my main man, quickly, before the Separatists attack, get into the escape pod.
Hey, this is escape, then we're the pod.
Welcome back to Star Wars Escape Pod, and a very special episode. We've got returning special guest of ours, Dr. Steve Ellerhoff. We're also celebrating Star Wars Podcast Day 2026, which is a fantastic way to open up the year. For any of you tuning in to Star Wars Escape Pod for the first time, we'll have a little bit of a blip for you to get familiarized with the show here. And we've got a few surprises and a very deep discussion ahead of us with Steve. So let's just dive right in.
Another happy landing.
All right, welcome back. Hello there, Blake.
Hello there. Good to be back. Chut chut.
Good to have you back. And hello there, Bryce.
Hey guys, yeah, good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. We got
It's been a while since you've been on, actually, hasn't it?
Yeah,
Actually, it
since
has.
our yelling match about who had the best team of
Right.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
yeah,
That was
that was
good.
a ton of fun. Yeah, glad to be back.
Yeah. And joining us on the other line, we've got Dr. Steve. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you so much. Great to be here, gentlemen.
Good to have you back. And, it's Star Wars Podcast Day. So, it's awesome to have someone as great as you celebrate with us. What a great week.
It's an honor.
Yeah, it's an honor.
Yeah, it's great.
Oh, thank you. I'll tell you who I envy right now. I envy the people stumbling onto the Star Wars Escape Pod podcast for the first time right now with this episode because of the backlog they get to listen to. Because this show is great. This is a great show. This is a stellar Star Wars podcast. So I wish I was one of those people, although I'm glad that I already am very well aware and versed in what you guys do around here.
Awesome. Well,
Thank you.
thanks for that.
That's
Yeah.
why we saved you for this episode, though, Steve, because we need a really hard hitting episode.
That's right.
So-
Yeah, we need to pull out the good cards. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, to a note to all of our listeners out there, being Star Wars Podcast Day, it is found on the internet with a few different hashtags and handles. So you can look up just simply Star Wars Podcast Day 2026. You can also look up the hashtag Star Wars Podcast Day or hashtag SWPD 2025. And what today celebrates is it's the anniversary of Jedi Talk, which was known to be the first ever Star Wars podcast, which premiered on February 7th, 1999, a couple months before The Phantom Menace hit the big screen. So if it's your first time checking out Star Wars Escape Pod, big thank you to the project for, organizing Star Wars Podcast Day. And you can find their socials kind of I'll put them in the description.
Is that podcast still going?
Is Jedi Talk?
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? I should probably know that, but I don't.
I just want to know what we need to, how long we have to go to beat them.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
27 years.
What are we, like six plus years in with over 406 or 8 episodes or something now? So
Goodness.
it's been a while. I mean,
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's an amazing achievement.
yeah, thanks, man. Like, I mean, I'm pretty happy about it. I didn't think
It's all
we'd be
you,
doing
man.
this that long. Like,
I just show up.
well, yeah, but you've been showing up for a long time,
That's true.
and so have you. I think that's something that I think I reflected on a little while back. It was for one of the previous Star Wars podcasts today. We did like a self interview, and I think I forget it was last year or the year before, but we did kind of like a
Lowest ratings ever. No,
It's kind of like a self-reflection episode of like what is it to make the podcast every week, and like why we like doing it, and like different things that we've come up with over the years for ideas and things like that, right? And inspirations that we had, you know, conversations before starting it as to what it would look like to do one. So you know, it's like it's a hobby, right? We've all talked about that. We've got different day jobs and stuff like that. So, you know, that's why people ask me this like more frequently than you would believe. Like
after 6 years, like, you're still talking about this?
Yeah. And well, they say like, oh, what on earth do you talk about? But then secondly, like, why don't you monetize it? I'm like, well, first of all, there's not a big enough audience to bother monetizing it. But even if we did, I hate ads. Why would I give ads to other people? Like, I don't know.
You got to manage all that too.
Yeah. And it's just like, man, I don't know. It's just like as soon as it becomes a job, it becomes less fun, right? And I don't know. It's all about the fun around here. Like, yeah.
Yep, just an excuse to hang out.
Yeah, exactly. Hang out and talk about Star Wars. That's how it started. That's how it's always going to be.
Unless we got sponsored by like a Star Wars product, then you'd have to.
Yeah. Well, actually, yeah.
Immediately doing the ad reads.
That's the closest it's.
How quickly the tide has turned.
We're always happy to plug stuff and like, oh yeah, ad reads. As far as like, so Steve, like a couple of years ago, we did a May the 4th episode, and on May 4th, there's all these Star Wars deals and sales going on.
Man.
Oh, sure.
And there was an
It's become
episode
notorious amongst the team, especially Phil.
Yeah, it was
every time.
it was the first year that we had Kirk on, and he was there for was he there for that one? I forget.
Maybe it was like his first episode.
I don't know if it was his first one, but Orbit Key had started coming out with their Star Wars lineup, and even though we don't monetize, it's like I'm happy to plug any company making Star Wars products, especially if they reach out to me and say, hey, we're gonna mail you some stuff. And so yeah, it's like, oh, heck yeah, like happy to do that.
It's good quality stuff too. So.
Oh yeah, awesome quality stuff. By the way, go check out the new Disney lineup. Orbit Key Disney lineup.
We're not paid to say this.
We're not paid to say this. And the whole entire episode just ended up being this giant advertisement for different Star Wars deals, and it just became the most long-running joke that we've ever had around here.
Because most of us just sat here listening to Josh like list sales for like 25 minutes.
Sounded like one of those like classic infomercials that never seems to like end.
And then at the end, I'm like, dude, you gotta cut all of that.
Yeah, it's like an hour and 25 minutes.
If you're just listing this.
Yeah, it was bad.
No, that's not. It sounds like a fun artifact to go back to though, and just be like, "Whoa, the deals that year."
You're totally not wrong. Like we recently had a small discussion in regards to the end of Star Wars Insider, which was the magazine that's being published by Titan, and yeah, I think that last issue comes out in February this month. But sadly enough, but I took out a few copies and we were kind of rifling through. And especially some of the older ones, you get that dual page spread of like 1,000 ads, like the teeny tiny like snippets that you could cut out of a magazine back in the day.
Yeah.
With a big price tag. Like they still did that in the Star Wars mags, but it was all Star Wars stuff. And like you instantly see this page and you begin to drool because it's like you've never seen so many Star Wars products listed on a single page, let alone two, and it's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, those artifacts, become significant in interesting ways down the road. They serve a purpose in their own time, but later they give us a little glimpse into something that was going on.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, I did a little bit of that when I focused on, because on my PhD I focused on short stories by Ray Bradbury and Kurt Vonnegut, and they get their stories published in things like Saturday Evening Post or Collier's magazines. They're these big magazines. They're like 4 times the size of a normal magazine today. And you'd get their story next to these weird advertisements on the same page. So like a Ray Bradbury story about the Velt. It's called the Velt. Or in when it came out in the Saturday Evening Post, it was The World the Children Made. And it's like these kids have this nursery where it's like a video screen walls and stuff,
right?
And they keep programming it to go to Africa and see lions, and then their parents are like, the kids are spending a lot of time in there, like it's kind of worrying. And then eventually the parents go in there and the lions eat the parents. Right. So in that story, on one of the pages with this story next to it, there's an ad, this huge ad for a toaster. And it's like, deluxe new toaster. It can toast 2 slices. And you're like, oh my God. The technology that people were living with when this story came out was that the 2-slice toaster was a really big deal.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So those ads, so like throw the stone down 50 years from now and look at those Star Wars insiders, and there are going to be some nuggets in there that resonate differently, I'm sure.
It kind of sets the scene, doesn't it? Like, it's like, wow, like, what a time, you know? Like, when I first got my Master Replicas Anakin Skywalker lightsaber at Costco in 2005, that was $99 plus tax. That brought it up to $120. And for a kid, that's an expensive toy, you know?
Costco pricing too.
But these days, dude,
you should have seen it at Zealous.
The Hasbro Black Series, the equivalent to the Master Replicas, they're like $300 or more. And it's like, it's insane. Like, it's on a different level now. That's why, I mean, I stick to the helmets, because like those are actually a reasonable $150. You know, still expensive, but it's like,
but they go on sale for
like, totally. Yeah. So those are pretty cool. But yeah, I totally, I mean, it's
$300.
Right. Yeah. Like, I mean, if you look it up right now, like you'll find like Rey's lightsaber and Ventress's, and
it's on the Disney site.
Just anywhere. I mean, if you go to Toys R we just lost our Toys R Us in BC, but if you go to like Walmart or Costco or whatever, like I'm sure, you know, you can probably find listings for it. And yeah, it's like north of like $250, $350.
Is this Canadian or USD?
This is Canadian.
Okay.
Yeah.
So knock off about 30%.
Yeah. But
buy your collectibles up here, everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty soon we will be just driving.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah.
Well, all the best to everybody looking out for Star Wars Podcast Day episodes, just to kind of round trip that. But all right, Steve, maybe if you want to start with maybe sharing a little bit about what you do, and because there's probably people tuning in that have no idea where you're coming from with your expertise and with Star Wars and all that. So take it away, and let's hear again a little bit about your fandom and your latest book and your Boshek endeavors.
Yeah, my next project is a Boshek cosplay. I decided like that has to happen. But I've only made a couple little purchases so far. I mean, it's going to be a slow build for that costume. But thank you. Yes, I've got a PhD in literature. I'm an American from the U.S., but I got my PhD in Ireland, and I studied literature and how to interpret literature, specifically through a lens of Jungian psychology. So I'm very interested in the work of Carl Jung, who was a Swiss psychologist and a contemporary of Freud a long time ago, and he has since had his psychology has sort of built up its own school that they call analytical psychology, and even that has splintered off into some other directions. But there have been several generations now of people who are psychologists and psychiatrists and therapists who help people through some of his ideas. If you've heard of like the collective unconscious, or extroverts and introverts, or if you hear somebody say, "Oh, I've got a complex," or "He's got a complex," or "She," whatever.
Those are such common terms these days.
Yep.
Yeah, we throw these words and we bandy them about, and they came through Jung's work. So what I do is I am not a Jungian analyst. I haven't been trained. So, but I have been trained in literary analysis. So I apply these ideas to fiction, and I love short stories. That's where a lot of my focus is. But I also love Star Wars, and I've applied Jungian ideas to reading Star Wars and analyzing Star Wars. And I've just had a book come out that took me 10 years to write, and it's called Jung and Star Wars, A Contemporary Mythology. And in the book, I make the case that Star Wars is a contemporary mythology for our times, which I think many, many people agree with, of course, but I also qualify it and talk about how it's a mythology using Jungian ideas. So that's where I'm coming from. I'm teaching a course also pretty soon. It starts on February 15th, and it's through Jung Academy, and it's an online Zoom course. And people are more than welcome to register for it. And if you hear this episode today, I'll give you a coupon code for it too, and you can get 20% off, which is the coupon code is Jedi 2026. So
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
that's 20% off. And it's going to be 5 sessions across 5 Sundays. And we're going to talk about a lot of the ideas in the book, but also build on it and discuss a lot like we're going to do here right now.
Amazing. Yeah.
Cool,
Thanks,
sounds
Steve. Yeah.
good. I'm sure there'll be a lot of people interested in that. Maybe we'll mention it again at the end and make sure no one forgets.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we'll mention it again. I'll also put it in the description down below. And already you've kind of demoed the content that you guys are covering, I guess, in that webinar that you hosted recently. Is that right?
Yeah. And yes, that's right. And thank you for attending that too. It was awesome to have you there.
Oh, it was a pleasure.
It was great. I had so much fun. It was a book launch that Jung Academy hosted. We had an in-person book launch here. I'm a worker owner of an independent bookstore, and so we did an in-person book launch here. But then Gary Bobroff at Jung Academy said, "Why don't we do an online book launch?" And hundreds of people signed up for that thing.
Wow, that's awesome.
Which was it was really humbling for me. It was just like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. And it was fun. We had a chance to talk about, mostly we talked about Darth Vader, and I just wanted to give people some ideas of sort of what I do in the book, and the examples I drew from were from Darth Vader. So
yeah. And he's such a great, I mean, it's kind of his story, like I feel like George always intended that to be a thing, especially once he did the prequels.
Central, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. And something that you touched up on in that chat was that Darth Vader is this personification of shadow, and it really stuck out to me. And am I remembering that correctly? Is that the term you use, shadow?
Yeah, there's absolutely, and there's something surprising about him when we think about him with shadow as well, because one of the Jungian archetypes that they talk about is the shadow, and this idea that each and every one of us has, aspects of ourself that we have denied, that we have maybe even suppressed, that we don't pay attention to. And Joseph Campbell used to talk about, Joseph Campbell, the mythologist who really influenced Star Wars, right? He used to talk about shadow, defining it as, if you find yourself getting really irrationally annoyed by somebody, it's probably because they are actively acting out of some aspect of your shadow side that you won't let yourself act out of. So ask yourself, if someone's just driving, you're like, I don't like that person at all, just right pretty quick after you meet them. It's like, that's probably your own shadow peeking up because you haven't given that aspect in yourself any room to come out. Darth Vader, of course, he does evil, awful things, and thankfully, a great many of us are not going to do the things that Darth Vader does in our lives, right? Yeah. He does go and express and behave in ways that we just won't let ourselves do. But I like to take it then a step further and say, well, okay, he is a good example of this sort of shadow figure in our society, in our culture. He's the shadow father, but if we look at him as a character and ask, well, what's his shadow? What is Darth Vader's shadow? Because there are people who just behave horribly in life. Those people do exist, and they don't suppress it. They don't hide it. And one of Jung's students who carried on his work was Mary Louise von Franz, and she says, watch out for the people who do these really horrible things. In them, if you look at their shadow is not darker. Their shadow, if the shadow is what you've been denying in yourself, if you go around behaving in evil ways, then the part of yourself that you're denying is going to be golden. It's going to be positive.
First. Yeah.
Exactly. So in the book, I kind of bring that around to Vader's relationship with C-3PO. And C-3PO, of course, is, for much of the saga, he's gold, right? Gold-plated, though not all of it. And
Silver leg.
That's right. He's got that little shin, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And so he's also influenced by the women in Anakin's life. He built him originally for his mother, and she finished his plate. She's the one who put the plating on him while Anakin had left to become a Jedi. And then later in Revenge of the Sith, we see 3PO being kind of like a butler to Padme. And so he's attached to these women, the two women in Anakin's life. And also 3PO is quite feminine himself in his behavior. And so he carries this aspect, and his sort of behavior is very different from Darth Vader's. And it almost does, I mean, the way 3PO's primary ways of behaving can be read as the parts of Anakin that he has cut off, that are behind him, that he can't access anymore, that he needs to integrate with. If he could integrate with them, he'd be in a much better place. But yeah, so I read 3PO as Vader's golden shadow. Right.
Is there maybe like a correlation between like shadow and shame, almost in a way that, I don't know, like your shadow is like when you feel almost like on the defensive or shameful about something, and that's kind of like when you're
definitely
that's
a really good description of it, actually. Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't think about that at all.
After you've acted on it.
Yeah, like I feel like sometimes C-3PO blends into the background a little bit, but that's a very cool kind of like thing to point out, is that he's kind of like this embodiment of what Vader left behind. Is that's very interesting.
Yeah, it's just it's kind of sad, because, and it was funny because I remember in 1999 when The Phantom Menace came out, and all these guys who were the age I am now, all these like middle-aged dudes, they were like, "What? Anakin built C-3PO? That's the dumbest thing I ever heard." Like all these dudes who were 45 back then, and now I'm 45, and I'm just like, well, part of my training as a literary scholar is that I don't get to play woulda, coulda, shoulda. I'm supposed to follow what's in the text, right? So if the text says that Anakin built C-3PO, then I have to do something with it. I have to think about it. I can't just be like, that's dumb.
Yeah, I mean, it was always such from coming from the original trilogy into the prequels, it did seem like a very odd thing for George to do, other than to just rope the character in somehow.
Yeah, but it is. It is odd. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
I was saying, but I never thought about it from the perspective that you're sharing. That George used that character, as you said, to become kind of the image of the the attributes of the women in Anakin's life. That's actually a really fascinating take on it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I landed with it, right? But let me just say, I'm one person.
Yeah.
And this saga is so nuanced and so complicated and beautiful, and it's such a tapestry that part of what's so great about Star Wars is the subjectivity of what we do with it. You were talking about, how I've got friends who ask me, how are you guys still, you've been doing the show 6 years. How are you still talking about it? And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, of course they're still talking about it after 6 years. Like, come on. My best friend in the world, I met him when I went to grad school in England, and that was like September 2002, September 2002. And ever since then, he and I have had one long conversation about Star Wars. Like, it has not stopped. Like, it lives up to all of our wonder and all of our capacities for debate and thinking and engaging, and that's part of what makes it a mythology.
Mm-hmm.
So true.
I had a brief kind of like foray into like Joseph Campbell and kind of like looking at some mythology stuff. And I think that's very interesting what you were talking about, because it's almost like Star Wars, it doesn't really stop, once it's released. It's something that's it's like a myth that's kind of constantly evolving, with us.
Living and breathing.
And as fans, we always want to almost participate in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally. And that participation continues it and makes it grow. It just it builds it and keeps it going. It's funny. I've wondered a little bit. This is just popped in my head from you saying that. It amazes me that we can pick up a translation of something like Gilgamesh or the Odyssey or the Iliad, and we can read those stories, and those characters and those gods and the sagas come back, right? And we're not from Mesopotamia, we're not from ancient Greece, but these characters and these stories still come to life.
Still resonate.
And I wonder they still resonate. So I wonder, what's it going to be like with Star Wars in 2,000 years? Will people will these characters still be around? Will people still be engaging with them in some interesting way?
Exactly. I was thinking about that because you shared a story about how there's a I forget the word for it, but a kind of like a gargoyle, on the cathedrals. Darth Vader, on I think an important cathedral in Washington. Yeah. But I was having that exact same thought with a coworker today. I was talking with him and I was like, man, this is kind of like, if someone were to discover this maybe 2,000 years ago, this is kind of like,
this was their god.
Yeah. Like our Hercules or something, right? Like they're finding these like statues. Yeah. And it's a very strange one because I like that the kid who actually made it as well thought about, oh, well, Darth Vader is kind of evil. Naturally, gargoyles are supposed to be evil because, the church is saying there's like evil out there, right? So it ends up being a pretty good choice for something like that, which is funny to think that, Darth Vader is like kind of, over someone getting married or like, right. But yeah, in 2,000 years, it'd be, so interesting to see like, I don't know if they still even remember this guy's name.
Right.
Or if they,
I think the main difference is going to be now that just pop culture and stuff changes so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And like, will it just kind of get lost? So my thoughts are, we need to etch the story into some tablets and build a stone temple and then bury it. So they'll find that so that they'll know.
Right. So maybe it actually just blows up into way bigger than it actually should.
That's right. They'll think it was an actual religion.
Yeah.
Or if people are digging through the rubble of like what was San Francisco and they come across the Yoda fountain outside of Eldak, it's like, what is this?
This is where it all happened.
Yeah, who's this?
Yeah, who's that? Yeah.
I think there was something about not taking not taking myths literally.
Yeah.
yeah.
I love what you said, just to go back a little bit about 3PO and Anakin and that relationship there. Something also, other than the fact that it's like, why did Anakin have to make 3PO this and that? The way that he's just so exposed in his incomplete form, you see right through him, right? And I love how that's almost this representation of being able to see through to the core of who Anakin is, because everyone at that age seems to be the most truest form of themselves. You know what I mean? Like there's this childlike wonder, and before life really hits you hard,
learn to filter yourself.
Yeah, and it's just like, man, this is who Anakin is. It's this boy. It's this this big heart person, like
twisted.
Yeah, and his mom is like telling Qui-Gon he gives without any thought of reward, and there's just this truthfulness about the character there, and in the same way that you can see right through 3PO, is the same way that you see right through Darth Vader, who we think he is, and you see who this boy is. Yeah. And I love that about that movie.
I think a lot of people had a disconnect from that when it came out too.
Yeah. But again, I mean, like, I'm just kind of going off what you're saying there, Steve. Like, I love that it's a mythology. We can make these connections later. You know what I mean? And something that George said to Dave that's kind of resonated with me over the years, and I forget where I heard it. It was on like a Clone Wars behind the scenes interview or something. And Dave was talking about this conversation that he had with George in the kitchen at one point at work, and he's like, "Hey, so we're gonna bring Maul back," and he's like, "What? Yeah, how are we bringing Maul back?" And he's like, "You'll figure it out," and then he walked away. And it's like, dude, like George Lucas telling you, figure it out. Like this is the guy who came up with the character. He's leaving it up to you to come up with the story of bringing him back. And it's like, wow. You know what? Yeah, that's just how it works, right? Like,
he was right. Look at all the money you printed off of that.
Yeah.
People love Darth Vader.
Oh yeah.
Arguably, it's like it's kind of better to have a genuine take on something rather than have 10 cooks in the kitchen trying to,
For sure.
Rule by committee.
Yeah.
No time to ask the committee. That's how George lives his life.
just have a go.
Now take a swing at it.
I didn't expect that we'd be like talking so much about C-3PO, but I want to add my own take on C-3PO.
All right, go for it.
Please do, yeah.
I almost feel like C-3PO is like the personification of a child that wasn't able to fully grow up and like mature.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like Anakin was not able to complete C-3PO, just like I feel like he wasn't able to finish being a kid. He was just thrust, into having to immediately grow up and to deal with all these things that he was not prepared for.
Yeah.
Right. So like, I don't know.
Yeah.
In another universe where Anakin completes C-3PO, what kind of Anakin is that? Kind of in the universe.
Yeah. And what kind of 3PO?
And what kind of 3PO? Yeah.
Yeah. And even seeing through, that's a wonderful point. He developmentally mirrors Anakin's development and the stunting of it. He didn't have that chance to really be finished.
Yeah.
And also, speaking of what Josh was talking about, seeing through also, Anakin at that time is a child, and in mythology, the Jungians always talk about the child archetype in mythologies, and children, the child always represents this great potential of what could be, and you don't know how they're going to turn out, right? But the fact is that potential, and when we meet 3PO and you can see through him, he's also unfinished, so he mirrors that in Anakin as a boy. Yeah, I think these connections make a lot of sense.
Yeah, for sure. There's always this, this innocence about a character who's a kid as well. And I think to expose people to that side of the character as well in that time period is a very, it's a bold story choice, right? And a lot of people I guess couldn't really find themselves on board with it when it first came out. But we were talking recently, we've been doing this thing for fun of just like taking these movies and looking at it from a different angle and trying to find the things that we can be critics of. But yeah, that's something that I guess thinking about that time period and stuff, like, yeah, I mean, like, it would have been a bit of a shock, like going from, big bad Darth Vader to little boy.
Right.
But very representative though.
Yeah, and also a little boy who's not like Damien from The Omen or something, like
right.
a little boy who's like
expecting.
he's like a great kid. He's like, this is a great kid, he's not some little evil boy.
Right.
I don't think Star Wars fans are ready to be have conflicting emotions at all. They're just like, wait, I thought this was just good versus evil.
Right.
It's like, it's just laid out for me. Why am I?
Nice and simple. Yeah.
This kid can't be nice. What?
Yeah.
Star Wars not supposed to be complicated.
In the original draft, he was a terrible child.
Yeah.
Qui-Gon finds him. He's like, I mean, he's pretty terrible, but I think I can change him. I think I can fix him.
Obi-Wan, I think I can make a difference.
He just needs a little leadership.
Oh man, I don't know if you've ever thought about this, or Steve as well. Just to slightly change topics, but this I believe it's still personification. This representation, I guess, of the duel between Yoda and Palpatine in Revenge of the Sith. You have this like very and I think it was a very famous different Star Wars podcast we listened to that somebody mentioned this, I believe. But you have this I think it was David W. Collins. He was a guest at one point on Rebel Force Radio. And he was saying something about, I believe it was him, about that duel representing this very stark contrast between good versus evil in the place of which all of the galaxy is centered on, which is the Senate. And having those two forces of like light and dark, like dueling it out, to battle to the death for the fate of the galaxy in this place. I was like, I never really thought about it that way before. I'd always thought like, man, what a cool duel. But like,
right.
I was like, oh wow, yeah, it's very like, it means a lot, like
there's a lot more depth to it than you think.
Yeah, there's a lot more depth to like, okay, what, like I never really thought about why is the duel here? Like, sure, Palpatine sits in his office all day, but like, why does it take place in this room?
Instead of Dex's diner.
Yeah. I don't know. Or on the roofs of Coruscant. Could be anywhere, right?
Texas diner. Just like everybody's just like, what? Oh God!
Imagine that in the history.
Falling
books.
into their soup and
No, I just picture like some sort of ending to the fight where Palpatine's cast into a pit of stew.
You want this, don't you?
yes, that's exactly what we want.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah. No, but that whole the symbolism going on with that happening in the Senate chamber, and also the Senate chamber being empty. I mean, everything is so out of balance. And in my book, I talk about how Yoda and Palpatine are two representations of the same archetype, which is the senex in Jungian psychology. Senex is just a Latin word for old man, but it often comes up in dreams and in mythologies, this figure, oftentimes it's, a wise old man, but it can also be a wicked old man. And James Hillman was another psychologist who studied under Jung, and he did a lot of work talking about this figure of the senex. And he always said, like, watch out for the senex figure, because the line between them acting wickedly or benevolently is very thin, and it can flip one side to the other pretty quickly. And I think in Star Wars, we see these two old figures of the old guard of the way things used to be done in the galaxy, both politically and then with the Jedi. You've got they're polarized. It's all polarized, and it's out of balance, and they just cannot. They cannot, because of the power struggle there. They cannot reconcile. They can't integrate with each other, which in Jungian psychology, that's sort of the thing that gets talked about a lot. This idea of seeking balance in your life and life itself, seeking integration with aspects that you're not acknowledging, and trying to attain something like wholeness. They're not so concerned in that therapy with being better people or nicer people or kinder people. They're more concerned with being whole people, so that you have all your capacities sort of activated. So you're not too one-sided. If you get too one-sided from their point of view, you get into these situations where you have Jedi and Sith, and they duke it out and ruin a galaxy, metaphorically.
Yeah, it's almost like getting to a point where you just understand each other, and to a point where there's balance.
Well, I think it should have been a single order. I think at least that was EU, that there was before it splintered, right? The Sith then went off and gave in to their own desires. And the Jedi very slowly crept from being in the center to being on the light side of the Force, and thinking that denying everything is what they need to do. That's not where they started.
Right.
Right. And that, becomes too one-sided, it's all out of whack. It's all out of whack. And part of that Senate chamber being empty when they fight like that, that's part of the imbalance. The government isn't there. It's all a dictator now. And that's a huge problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
I never thought about it through that context. Actually, that makes sense.
Yeah. It's interesting, right?
Yeah, there's such a divide and a lack of understanding that it's causing it's the opposite of the balance in the Force. It is like chaos in the Force, maybe something like that.
Oh yeah, totally. That's a really good chaos in the Force. That's great. I've never thought about the opposite of balance in the Force. That's awesome, Bryce.
Yeah, I don't know,
chaos in the Force. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
And that's clearly what happens. I mean, it's Star Wars, right? Wars. It's not just one war. We're talking multiple. It's plural. That's not ideal. That's
right. I think it was towards the end as well. You were talking about archetypes, and I brought up that crazy Clone Wars arc, which was the Mortis trilogy. And and just and then you reminded me that the big statues, we saw them at the end of Ahsoka season 1, and I guess Dave is kind of revisiting that mythology inside of the mythology, I guess, and and it's just, I don't know, it's just such a cool thing, but just to kind of revisit that, I guess, what are your thoughts with the different sides of the Force being represented by, these people?
I enjoyed that story arc a lot, and I think you guys, you guys were talking about this on one of your episodes about how this is a great story arc in in an animated show, and can it translate well to sort of a live action situation and story? And I find that an interesting question as well. Sort of the idea of Clone Wars being a great, and Rebels too, being great grounds for just telling great stories, and sort of wacky stories even. There's stories that are a little, that take risks,
it almost helps to have this little bit of room of disbelief because it's animated, So I feel like you're more forgiving for stuff that's maybe a little bit more extreme for what you're expecting in like live action show.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. And I do a lot of reading. I'm because of my Boshek worship, I'm working through all the short stories written by Robert Sheckley, who Boshek's named after, and he was writing short stories in the 50s through the early 2000s, and some of those stories are so goofy and funny, and I'm like, this like works as a short story, but like if this was like an episode of the Twilight Zone or something, would it work? I don't know if it would. But sometimes the medium of the story itself helps a story succeed, I think. And I'd be curious. I'm excited. What I'm trying to get to is that I'm excited to see what gets done in Ahsoka season 2 with those statues and what that means, because those characters are so interesting. It's very fairy tale like. It's and the Jungians love fairy tales. They love analyzing fairy tales because fairy tales are short. They have these characters who are very bold and almost drawn in bold outline, and so you can really attach archetypes to different characters in a fairy tale and analyze them almost like dreams. And so I see a lot of that in the Mortis Gods, and I see how it applies, and I love what they did with it, and I'm ready for more, and I don't care if anybody else isn't. That's what I'm saying.
I'm pretty excited to see the how it all comes together.
Yeah, me as well. So, man, sometimes the lack of understanding is like the most interesting.
Is the draw.
Yes.
The most exciting, and like things that makes me enthusiastic to like seek it out.
Right.
The fact that I feel like maybe a little small in comparison, like in a lot of these like situations, or even in like fairy tales or old like mythology, where it's like a human dealing with these like ethereal beings, stuff that he has no idea. Sometimes feel like small makes you feel scared, and that's exciting. I don't know.
Yeah,
sense of wonder.
Yeah.
It's more primal emotions, I guess.
Yeah. What? Because I know when Phantom Menace came out, that I feel like, I guess this is a bit of a larger chat for like the I guess the perception of revealed information that kind of subverts your expectations. But when the movie came out, what did you think about this idea of midi-chlorians? Because that also seems to be something that tends to
point for a lot of people.
It tends to be it's like, oh man, that's like, not how I imagined the Force worked.
Of the Force.
Right. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's funny because I remember people being butthurt about it, and I know people who still are. I think what I observed is that a lot of people had a knee-jerk kind of first impression reaction to midi-chlorians, which is to say, I think a lot of people took it literally, and they kind of left it there. They left their first impression there and didn't keep turning the idea over. Because, one of the interesting things about the midi-chlorians is like, well, what does that even mean? How are these characters interpreting that? Are the characters even correct in interpreting it that way? Yeah. And sort of what I came around to was that, part of the Phantom Menace is that the Jedi are completely oblivious to Palpatine's presence in their midst. He is the Phantom Menace, right? Mm-hmm. And they're relying on things like, oh, I need to prick your finger and take a blood sample and see what your count is, and see, oh my gosh, it's even greater than Master Yoda. Holy crap. So is that a situation where the Jedi have kind of applied some kind of scientific understanding to the Force? Do they think they understand the Force? Because if they do, they're missing that Palpatine's in their midst at the same time, and that's a massive tell, right? So
And
maybe
I think
they
that's
have
what
just,
George was getting at. Was exactly that. At least now that we've seen all the movies in hindsight, it's like they've become focused on the wrong things and become blind to the reality around them.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Like, for some reason, this whole time, I didn't really think of it like, oh, there's all these people angry about midichlorians. It's like, you can be, that's just your opinion that you believe the Jedi don't understand the Force. Like, you think, like.
yeah.
Kind of thing,
That's another
right?
step back, because I think their opinion often would be, at least when I remember talking to people at the time, was that George ruined the Force, and that they stopped there.
Well,
he wrecked it.
He retconned it.
Exactly. You could have that, but if you wanted to, if you want to just live in the universe, and just have the opinion that, okay, well, just maybe the Jedi, aren't understanding the Force, and you're like, I think Steve is explaining it too, like, where in a way that they're doing it like a scientific approach, and it's showing that they don't understand it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that kind of brings it back a little bit to be like, okay, I can still participate with this piece of Star Wars that maybe I'm not super happy with, but I can participate in a way that makes sense in the lore. Does that?
Yeah. It does make sense.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great explanation of it. Yeah. Because, I mean, I don't know. What does it affect things if the midichlorians are part of the Force, or if there's this correlation that happens that they've noticed that, certain individuals who have a high count tend to have a high
power rating.
Yeah, there you go. That's part of it, but yeah, to say it just breaks the Force, you can also, I find that very, it's a lazy reading from my point of view, of just like, he ruined the Force and I'm taking my ball and I'm going home, it's just lazy to me. Yeah. I'm like, no, let's turn it over and keep turning it over. And then, like Blake said too, we've had so many, we had several more films on top of that one that have come out, and then
the animated
also,
series too, which is also helped immensely.
Exactly. There's all kinds of stuff, and not to mention the books and the lore spreading out through comics and games and everything else. So yeah, I've always, when somebody is all like, yeah, but what about those midichlorians, in a really derisive way, I just kind of roll my eyes like
that and Jar Jar Binks go hand in hand, but yeah.
Right. Yep. I'm like, okay, that's who I'm talking to right now. Okay.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Well, I would love to dig even deeper with all this stuff, but we're running a bit short on time, and we have something to show you, at least something funny to. Well, hopefully our audience likes it too.
I'm looking forward to it. I heard something about it. I'm excited. Yeah.
Okay. Let's do sorry for the hard transition here, but let's jump in the land speeder and switch, shall we?
All aboard.
Whoa!
Well, I'm not buckled in yet.
You almost hit that guy.
Oh.
All right, here we are.
Whew, man.
Just about to ask, are we there yet?
We just drove across the street. Why don't we walk?
Yeah.
Oh.
Over to I don't know, Sleazy's story time or whatever the Sleazo's, whatever his name is. Forget that alien's name. All right. So we're talking about mythologies and everything like that, and it's just there's nothing better than adding to it. Am I right?
Is that what you consider this? Oh man.
Well, I mean, take it with as you will. I mean, maybe this happened, maybe it didn't. But we got a little bit of a short story here that the concept is kind of designed by one of us, and then we have a little bit of help of new technology to generate the 2-page script. But This is a banter between Anakin and Obi-Wan. This is during the years of Anakin's apprenticeship to Obi-Wan, and maybe you want to briefly talk about the title of what we're going to call this?
So we've actually come across the lost childhood diary of Darth Vader.
Yeah. Can you believe
full
it?
of all these childhood stories.
I mean, I'm super excited to get into this. All right. Strap in.
I'm taking notes.
All right. So this is the first page here. It's called Episode 1, The Juice of the Jedi. The setting, a booth at Dex's Diner. A neon sign flickers. The smell of grease and engine oil hangs heavy. Obi-Wan Kenobi looks like he's undergoing a root canal. And Anakin Skywalker is vibrating with excitement. Anakin slams a mug of glowing orange liquid onto the table. Drink it, Master. Just one sip. It's the nectar of the twin suns. Anakin, that smells like a damp bantha blanket left in the trash compactor. It's Jawa juice. It isn't even juice, it's fermented scrap metal runoff. You're missing the complexity, Master. It's not sour. It's vibrant. It's like the moment a lightsaber ignites, but in your throat. Oh, my teeth are dissolving. It tastes like someone dissolved the Sith holocron in battery acid. How can you enjoy this? See, that's your problem. You're too grounded. To me, the sourness is a metaphor for the Republic. You have to cut through the bitterness to find the sweetness of democracy. Democracy tastes like a copper and regret. That explains a lot about the Senate, actually. It's sweet, like the pod racing tracks of Mos Espa. If you hold it on your tongue long enough, it tastes like a high-speed thrill of a 180-degree turn over a canyon. No, it tastes like a 100-degree turn into a rock wall. It's offensive, Anakin. It's uncivilized.
Here you go, boys. 2 orders of roasted pork. Extra crispy.
Ah, finally. Excellence. Look at that golden skin, Anakin. Now this is a meal fit for a master. The meat is so tender it practically melts, like a peaceful resolution to a trade dispute. It's okay, but it's nothing without the Tuscan sauce. You're not putting that grit on perfectly good pork. You need the texture. The crunch adds character. It's smoky. It's earthy. It's got that Raider kick. Anakin, have you ever stopped to consider the name Tuscan sauce? What do you think is in it? Spices? Sand plum? That's ground up Tuscans, Anakin. It's right there in the title. You're eating a sentient species condiment. It's barbaric. Don't be ridiculous. It's called Tuscan sauce because it's made by Tuscans. Like baby oil. Oh, wait, no. Precisely. You're dipping a flightless bird into the puree of dessert marauders. And you have the nerve to tell me that my palate is the problem. Even if it is Tuscans, it provides the necessary contrast to the pork. The pork is soft and weak. The sauce is aggressive. It brings balance to the plate. I'm reporting you to the council. Not for the Tuscans, but for your terrible taste in beverages. The council can't handle the zest, Master. And that is the end of that chapter.
Wow. I feel like he shouldn't be allowed to eat that porg. It's good for a master.
Oh, the voices are spot on.
Yeah.
Well done.
Josh is well practiced.
Yeah, you did a great job.
Oh, thank you, sir. We were having a good time coming up with a bunch of just ridiculous scenarios the other day.
Yeah, we were doing this for like 2 hours.
It was a lot of fun.
And
Josh was polite enough to read all of them. So we're like, let's just do it on the show.
oh my goodness, I was like tearing up laughing so hard because I hadn't pre-read any of these. But what we wanted to do with you is before we wrap things up here is what would be your idea of a
Scenario.
of a scenario between Anakin and Obi-Wan? Yeah.
It could be other characters too, but
Well, it could be other characters too, but those are just some good voices I've got in mind. I was saying to these guys, like, there's something about like the episode 2, like the young kind of moody droney Anakin that you know, that just kind of adds with the uptight Obi-Wan, just kind of adds.
Me back.
I think what makes like a situation like that really fun is you have one curmudgeon-y guy,
right,
and you have one enthusiastic kid, and then they kind of
overly
swap,
emotional,
you know, because they're like,
oh yeah, totally,
right,
totally,
so there's,
totally.
All right, yeah. So,
like,
what would be your idea here? And what we'll do is we'll whip it up, and then I'll read through it.
Nice. Okay, what popped into my head was that I've got friends now who have teenage boys, and they're like, Steve, like they stink. They smell bad. Like it's bad. They eat all the food and they smell bad. So, Obi-Wan's there, like when Anakin is a teenager and everything. So what, like hygiene, Anakin starts stinking, and Obi-Wan has to have a little talk with him, like, hygiene's really important, that kind of thing.
Yeah, the hygiene talk.
Like the hygiene talk that every like teenager needs.
That's such a
to
good
get.
idea.
Okay, yeah.
Obi-Wan teaches Anakin how to shave his peach fuzz.
yeah, totally. So, that'd be funny. Like, yeah, because we all need help with that, or did at one time.
It's a learning experience.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Here we go.
We're doing it right now.
We're doing it right now. It's super quick. All right. So this one's called. This is a live one. All right. This one's called "The Stench of the Chosen One." Setting: a private staging area in Coruscant Diplomatic District. Obi-Wan Kenobi is adjusting his pristine silk robes in a mirror. Anakin Skywalker is slouching nearby, looking slightly disheveled. Anakin, the delegation of Alderaan is expecting a certain level of decorum. If you could just ensure that your cloak is... By the Force. Must have been a thermal vent in the floorboards. Old building, Master. Anakin, that smelled like a swamp slug's digestive tract after a week of binging on rotten seaweed. It's localized. It's aggressive. It's clinging to my beard. I've been in the machine shops all morning, and I had the spicy Nuna wings at Dex's. My biology is just efficient. Your biology is a bioweapon. You can't go out there. You smell like a grease fire in the locker room. Senator Amidala is 3 rooms away. Do you want her to think the Republic is being defended by a man who hasn't seen a sonic shower since the Battle of Naboo? I wiped my boots, and I used some engine degreaser on my hands. I'm fine. Engine degreaser is not cologne, Anakin. We need a total system reboot of your hygiene. Now stand still. First, we must neutralize the Nuna cloud. I want you to channel the Force, not for combat, but for filtration. Create a localized vacuum around your midsection and dissipate the particles into the upper atmosphere. I am a Jedi, not an air purifier. Oh, then we move to step 2, the dry scrub. This'll take a ceremonial handkerchief dipped in my tea. It's Earl Grey. The bergamot will act as a natural astringent for your pungent aura. I am not dabbing myself with your tea, Obi-Wan. I'll look like a soggy biscuit. It's either the tea or I'm calling a squad of clone troopers to hose down your robes with industrial-grade floor wax. And for the love of the High Republic, stop moving. Every time you shift, you create a frictional funk, and you're aerating the stench. Oh, I have an overactive metabolism. It's part of being the chosen one. Obi-Wan grabs a spray bottle of droid lubricant. The prophecy said that you would bring balance to the Force, not body odor to the outer rim. And if you let another one loose during the senator's speech, I will personally tell the council that your anger issues are actually just chronic flatulence. Fine. I'll stand still. I'll hold my breath. I'll be a statue of cleanliness. Good. Now try to think floral thoughts. Think of a meadow on Naboo. Don't think of Nuna wings. The Force is with you, Anakin, but the air quality is definitely not. Scene.
Wow.
Very good. Very good.
Amazing. Did it live.
All right. Well, thank you for the prompt.
Oh, thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Awesome. All right. Well, before we close out here, I know you're very much looking forward to Ahsoka season 2, but are you looking forward to the new Maul animated show? Is the animated show
That's
something
next, I
you're?
think.
Yeah, that's next. Maul Shadow Lord.
Absolutely, yes. I am looking forward to it, and also, who knows what's coming? We've got a new CEO for Disney, and then for the Filoni, the sort of duo CEO of Lucasfilm. You know, it's a critical juncture for Star Wars. So, whatever in the short term, Maul, and going forward, who knows?
Yeah.
But
Interesting time.
yeah, excited about all of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Awesome. So to everyone listening out there, look for Steve's links in the down below, where we're going to have them all in the description to the book, to the upcoming course, and anything else you want to put down there. Just let me know. Let me know, Steve, and I'll drop it down there.
Thanks for having me back.
Yeah,
you guys are awesome.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming back. The code.
again.
Yeah, the code. Yeah, you want to repeat that one again?
Yeah, 20% off the course at Jung Academy. It's Jedi 2026. Thank you for remembering that, Bryce.
Yes, thank you.
Is that all capitalized or lowercase? Or?
I think the page will refresh even if it's wrong the first time.
Just
You only
keep
got two
trying.
options, so
Actually, the J and the D are capitalized, the E and the I are not.
Always keep them guessing.
Shaking it up.
yeah. All right, and huge thank you for joining us again, Steve, and thank you again to our lovely co-hosts here, Blake and Bryce, for coming back on as well. And happy Star Wars Podcast Day to everyone out there. So may the Force be with you guys.
Yeah, may the Force be with you guys as well. Great meeting you, Steve. Hopefully not for the
You
last.
too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Bryce. And Blake, Josh, may the Force be with Jung as well.
May the Force be with Young.
We'll see you out there. Keep flying.
All right. May the Force be with you all out there in the galaxy. And you can look forward to more episodes from Star Wars Escape Pod on any platform of your choice. This has been a privilege.